Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to transform a bunch of scientific research and botanical history into a completely fascinating journey, and it's taking place right inside your own living room. I'm incredibly excited to dive into this topic with you because it is absolutely going to change how you look at the everyday world around you, starting literally with the plants sitting on your windowsill.
So I want you to take a second and look over at that trailing green vine in your house. Maybe it's hanging from a bookshelf or, just sitting there by your kitchen sink. And I want you to honestly ask yourself, do you truly know what it is? Because, well, odds are you've actually been calling it by the wrong name your entire life.
What's really wild about this is that your beloved, easygoing greenery actually has a super chaotic history, a famous doppelganger, and even a hidden dark side. The world's most common houseplant is basically living a lie. So today, we're going to put on our detective hats and uncover the whole truth.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, an identity crisis, the century-long struggle to name a common vine.
For almost a century, this poor plant was misclassified into entirely wrong genera. It's like a taxonomic game of musical chairs. In 1880, it was named Pothos aureus. Then, around 1908, botanists moved it to Scindapsus. By 1963, they thought, oh, it's definitely Rhaphidophora, before finally getting it right in 1964 as Epipremnum aureum. But here's the absolute kicker. Even though it was booted from the actual Pothos genus over 100 years ago, a genus that, by the way, has 65 entirely different species, we stubbornly still call it a pothos today.
So where on earth did it actually come from? For a really long time, nobody knew for sure. It wasn't until top aroid botanists like Pete Boyce and Dr. Thomas B. Crowett came along that they finally pinned down its true origins. As Dr. Crowett pointed out, it is a distinctly unique species native specifically to the island of Moorea in French Polynesia. From that one single remote island, it has somehow spread like wildfire to living rooms all over the globe.
Now, you might be wondering, why were the world's smartest scientists so incredibly confused about its identity early on? Well, the answer boils down to one word: ontology. This is the natural process where living beings drastically change their physical shape as they grow and mature. Early botanists were studying sterile, juvenile plants that look absolutely nothing like their adult forms. So basically, that little leafy vine on your desk, it's essentially a permanent toddler.
18 inches. Seriously, let that sink in. That is the wild potential of your plant. If you allow it to climb high enough in the wild, or even in a really tall indoor atrium, those tiny, cute little oval leaves morph into massive, pinnated, multi-lobed adult leaves that are over 18 inches long. The stems grow to be over 2 inches thick. It literally transforms into an absolute jungle giant.
All right, moving right along to Section 2, spotting the imposter. Pothos versus philodendron. Since we know what it really is now, let's learn how to tell these structural differences between it and its most famous lookalike, the heartleaf philodendron. Check your plant stems. If it's a true pothos, or epipremnum, the stems will be grooved right in the center, and the aerial roots are going to be thick with just one solitary root per node. If it's a philodendron, the stems are perfectly smooth, and you'll see thin, clustered roots hanging out at the nodes. But the absolute dead giveaway here is exactly how the new leaves unfurl. For a pothos, the leaves emerge right at the tip of the stem, unfurling directly into the world. Philodendrons, on the other hand, they actually break out of this opaque protective sheath called a cataphyll, and the new leaves will often have a distinctly pinkish tint to them.
Let's dive into Section 3, thriving on neglect. Why this plant rules the indoor jungle.
This plant boasts a ridiculously impressive resume. It can photosynthesize in incredibly low light. We're talking down to 50-foot candles. To put that into perspective, that's basically a windowless room with just a few office lights on. On top of that, a famous 1989 NASA study found it actively purifies specific air toxins like formaldehyde and benzene. And a peer-reviewed study out of the University of Hyogo showed that just having this plant nearby measurably lowered office workers' stress by 27%. It even acts as a natural humidifier during the dry winter months. Talk about an overachiever, right?
So the real secret to keeping it alive is actually ignoring it a little bit. Its thick, fleshy stems are perfectly designed to store water. And those aerial roots we talked about, they absorb atmospheric moisture.
Its biology is quite literally built to survive tropical droughts. That means watering it on a strict, fixed weekly schedule is actually the #1 cause of failure. You really just have to wait until the soil is totally, completely dry. And hey, if you ever want to multiply your plant and expand your indoor jungle, propagating this thing is nearly foolproof. You just follow these 3 simple steps. Cut a stem about ½ an inch below a node, submerge that node directly in water or soil, and then just wait. Within 7 to 14 days, you're going to see robust white roots starting to form. It's really that easy. But despite its incredibly easygoing nature and all of those amazing air purifying benefits, we have to pause and ask a much darker question. Why did this beloved, helpful plant earn such an ominous, sinister nickname like Devil's Ivy?
Which brings us to section 4, Beware the Devil's Ivy, a beautiful vine with a toxic secret.
It turns out the world's most common houseplant actually harbors a really painful microscopic defense mechanism. Every single part of the plant is packed with something called calcium oxalate rawfides. These are essentially invisible, microscopic, needle-like biomineral crystals. So if a leaf gets chewed on, these crystals are released and they act like hundreds of microscopic daggers right in the mouth. Ouch. Now, while it's rarely life-threatening, ingestion causes severe swelling, drooling, and obvious distress for your dogs and cats. And for humans, just handling the sap can irritate a young child's sensitive skin, and actually ingesting it causes severe mouth and throat discomfort for any curious toddlers wandering around.
So the crucial takeaway here is this. If you have curious pets or babies who just love to put things in their mouths, it is definitely best to hang the Devil's Ivy completely out of reach. Or, honestly, better yet, swap it out for one of these entirely non-toxic alternatives. Things like the vibrant peacock plant, a flaming sword bromeliad, a money tree, or even just a classic spider plant are all fantastic, safe options.
All right, let's wrap the whole shebang up. From a completely misunderstood island native with a chaotic history of identity theft to a scientific marvel that literally cleans our air and lowers our stress, all while harboring a microscopic danger, Epipremnum aureum is anything but a boring piece of background decor. So the next time you go to water it, just remember the untamed potential trapped inside that little pot, just waiting for the right jungle to climb. And that leaves us with this final thought for you to chew on. If your tiny, unassuming kitchen plant is really just a juvenile waiting to unleash its wild 18-inch leaves, what else in your home is hiding its true nature? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.